Hello.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Right, back to basics today, because I sometimes think we can all be a bit guilty of, analysing small details and discussing nuance, when really, at this time of year, a lot of people are sat there thinking, what are the big things that I can do for my personal finances over the next 12 months? In my opinion, the one thing that's worth a lot of attention is pensions. To spell out the issue that we all face here, in my hands is a letter. It's not addressed to me. For some reason, I find the idea of opening my own mail absolutely terrifying. But this is a special letter sent to Ruth Park Pearson from Tadcaster, North Yorkshire. It reads, "My wife and I are so pleased to know that you are celebrating your 100th birthday on the 21st of October, 2022. Best wishes, King Charles."
Exterminate.
This is one of the first letters sent by the new king. But question for you, how many people alive in the UK today currently have one of these letters? How many people have hit the century and are still alive to talk about it? The answer is 15,120. Okay then, so by 2066, when I'll be in my retirement, how many people will have one of those letters? I'll give you a clue. It's a lot more than 15,000. 500,000 people will be over 100 in 2066 in the UK alone. 15,000 now and 500,000 in 40 years. Prince William is going to have one hell of a sore wrist, and it's going to have nothing to do with his crown jewels.
Do you know where it is?
No.
The administrative nightmare that signing all of these letters poses to William is emblematic of the problem we all face when it comes to retirement. We are living longer. By 2045, 20 to 25% of all children born will hit the age of 100. The Prudential the other day tweeted out this tweet saying that the first person to live to 150 years or older is already alive. That is older than the Red Cross, Goldman Sachs, the Electric Light Bulb and Tom Jones.
I wanna die.
I think most would by 150, Tom, mate. Considering this revelation, it's not unusual to expect that the world should be preparing for Dorian Gray levels of life expectancy. Well, my seemingly immortal friends, you would be wrong. The average pension pot in retirement in the UK currently sits at a colossal £55,000. That will buy you a Tesla Model Y or around 2k a year in sustainable retirement income. Is it surprising then, really, that around 20% of all pensioners here in the UK live in poverty? These are people that have worked their whole lives, paid their dues, contributed to the tax system, and now they struggle to feed themselves. What is going on? How can a population be so inadequately prepared for something that is inevitable? Okay, one more stat. 1 in 10 British adults say they do not save into a pension because they do not understand them. And here, ladies and gentlemen, we have the problem. In about the same amount of time as a modern day life expectancy, the financial weight of providing for people in later life has gone from governments to businesses, and now it sits with you. The buck, or a lack of a buck as I should say, has been passed down the line, and the burden of responsibility sits in your lap, and no one is talking about it for some reason. The sum total of most people's conscious effort towards planning their retirement can be boiled down to a selection of a risk profile when you first sign up to a scheme. Are you cautious or adventurous or somewhere in the middle? You get more options on a Nando's spice chart than that. We are being failed by a system that puts us to work our whole lives, spits us out at the end and then goes, "Oh, did nobody tell you that you're going to be retired for 30 years and it's up to you to save for it?"
People are being left on their own and shouldering more responsibility to build up those retirement funds and possibly not knowing how much they should save.
Today, we're going to change that. I can't promise to explain every aspect of pensions for you in a 10 to 15, 20-minute video, however long this is going to be, because they are complicated. But what I can do is get you started and hopefully inspire you to just take your retirement seriously. So instead of throwing your money into a scheme with no idea what it's invested in or what you're being charged,
Just take all your money and throw it in a big mattress back there.
instead of just moving jobs and leaving random pots of your money in the hands of other previous schemes, instead of just walking blindly towards 60 odd hoping everything will just figure itself out, let's take this concept of retirement, let's take this concept of getting old and own it. Whew. Goddamn pension statistics got me feeling all hot and flustered again. Or maybe it's Tom Jones. I mean, it's hard to tell anymore. Right, where do we start? Let's start at the end with how much you'll need.
And we have to tell them, you really haven't saved enough.
How much will I need in retirement is one of those questions that people crave a definitive answer for. But really, it's kind of hard to pin down because it all comes down to what kind of lifestyle you want to live in retirement. There's loads of rules of thumb on what the right approach is, but today, I just want to go through a simple framework with you that can maybe answer the question for your own specific circumstances. Now, this isn't perfect, and the further you are from retirement, the harder it gets to forecast this. But let me introduce you to the fine people of the Pensions and Lifetime Savings Association. They've put together a really handy guide on what someone who is retired right now might need in terms of annual income. I'm going to link this below for you because it's got loads of detail and will help you frame in your head, okay, that's the kind of life I want in retirement. They cover everything in the sections from like holidays to meals out. But the headline figures for a single person are $10,900 for your basic standard of living, $20,800 for a moderate lifestyle, and $33,000 a year to be very comfortable. Let's just be honest here, basic is a tough existence. 10% of that amount has just been swallowed up by energy bills instantly in the last 12 months. But the reality is, with the average pension pot in the UK being 55k and add in your state pension, most people in this country live in that bracket. So what we need to do now is take the income that you think you would need, you know, the lifestyle that you want here, and then basically work out what that will be in terms of spending power in the future once we adjust for everyone's favourite thing, inflation. To do this, I've linked an inflation calculator below for you. You just input the date you wish to retire and then the amount of money that you want today, and then we'll adjust it for inflation. So this could be one of the guidelines we just discussed from the PLSA, or it could be, say, 75% of your current income. For the sake of argument, let's say for me that I want to retire when I'm 67, and when I want to retire, I want the equivalent of £33,000 a year in spending power, and the inflation rate averages at 2.5%. I know. But if I slap 10% down, you're going to need to be Jeff Bezos just to feed yourself. So let's go with 2.5%. The calculator says by the time I retire, I'm going to need £74,000 a year to buy the same amount of stuff that 33k gets me today. All around me are familiar. In order to have a pot of cash that produces 74k a year in income sustainably, I'd need about 2.5 million saved in retirement funds.
I wanna die.
Look, I know that sounds like a ridiculously large figure, and the last thing I want to do with this exercise is just send you under, but I wanted to show you that your pension is likely going to be the most valuable asset in your life, worth more than your home even, so they're really worth taking a look at. Also, you don't need all that money in a pension. A combination of assets can get you there. Maybe you have a buy-to-let property or an ISA. You could downsize your home to pull money out of that. There's loads of ways to get there. And also the idea is over the next 30 years or however long it is for you, that you'll earn more and more money and you can save more and more the closer you get. But the earlier you address this, the sooner you look at it, the easier it is. So today's focus is on pensions. So at this point, I'm sure some of you are sat there going, well, why bother with a pension? I'll just use my ISA instead. And it is a valid comment. So I'm just going to, first of all, give you some of the headline benefits of a pension so you can see why it's such a powerful tool. For this short section, we're really going to focus on the benefits of a defined contribution scheme, which is the type of scheme most people watching this video will have. So with an ISA, any money you get can grow as big as it wants and you'll never pay tax on it. Also, you can access that money anytime you like. Pensions lack this flexibility. You can't access the money until a certain age. But at 55, soon to be 57, you can take 25% of the value of your pension out tax-free as a lump sum, and then the rest or any money you take after that is taxed like it's income in accordance with these bands. Now this sounds rubbish versus a pension, but the key thing is any money you put into your pension, the government will give you tax relief on it. So if you pay 20% tax, they will give you back that tax when you pay money in. Higher rate taxpayers will get 40%, so they'll get 20% instantly as soon as they pay into their pension, and they can claim another 20% at the end of the year via their self-assessment tax return. Higher earners can actually get up to 60% tax relief, which is massive. If you contribute into a work scheme, this tax relief process is done automatically by you not paying income tax on any money that goes into your pension. Yes, it's true that you're taxed at retirement on any income that you take out your pension, aside from the 25% tax-free lump sum. But just consider the fact that most people will drop down a tax bracket when they are retired because they spend less money. So you get a 40% rebate going in if you're a higher rate taxpayer, and you might only draw that income at 20% on the way out. Another added bonus is the fact that currently pensions sit outside of your estate. So if you die, in most cases, you can pass on your pension to your loved ones and they won't pay inheritance tax on it. You don't get that benefit with an ISA. So good are the benefits of pensions that you're limited to being able to put 40k a year into them on an annual basis. Now, these rules are always subject to change, and really, that is my point here. I take advantage of all the different types of accounts available to me. I have a stocks and shares ISA, a LISA, and a pension covering me from all bases, so if rules do change, I have pots of cash in different types of accounts. One example that comes to mind is something called the lifetime pension allowance. This is the maximum amount you can build up in a pension before you incur additional taxes on top of the ones we discussed before. Currently, it sits at just over 1 million quid. I've linked some details below for you. On the basis that most people watching this are probably going to need millions in retirement, you would hope that they would up this allowance so as to not penalise people. But will they, won't they? I don't know. So what I do is I spread my investments around all multiple different types of accounts with different benefits. But I'm certainly not going to pass up on the tax relief benefits of a pension. But we're getting in rabbit holes here. Like I said, pensions are complicated, and that is not the purpose of this video. Today, I just want to give you the basics so you can take ownership of yours, and then we can dive more into the details in future videos. Okay, now what I want to do is look at the amount that you need to be saving from your wages on a monthly basis.
The suggestion is people should save 10 to 15% of their annual income for their pension, and in reality, often they save less than 5%.
15% sounds like a lot, doesn't it? I mean, I get that some of you are going to be sat there going, hold on, I'm getting taxed 20 to 50% of what I earn anyway, and now you want me to park another 15% so future me can spend it on Werthers. Nah. First of all, as we've discussed already, that 15% doesn't all need to be going into pensions, ISAs, buy-to-lets, whatever. And secondly, I'm going to show you in a second how the system helps you get to that 15% without actually saving 15%. Okay, so let's look at the different types of pensions now really quickly. And for each type, I'm going to give you some actionable steps to go away with so you can get yourself started. First up, state pension.
Make some provision for old age.
You fund this through national insurance payments that come off your income when it's taxed. You get £185.15p per week currently, but that's about to go up to 203 quid a week. There are pension credits and benefits on top of this as well, but topic for another day. The age you claim this at will be 67 from 2028. Now, it's debated on if state pension will even be a thing by the time I retire. These schemes were designed really only to pay out for a max of 10 years, and with everyone now lasting longer than Tom Jones' career, the systems that pay these simply can't afford to keep maintaining the payments at those levels. Something kind of has to give, but at the same time, which political party is going to be the one that scraps state pension? Let's see how many votes they get next time around. So there are other ways that they can kind of reduce this burden without scrapping it. And personally, I think these are more likely. So you could up the age that people get it. We're already seeing that. I bet by the time I'm getting state pension, I'll be 75 or so. Also, you can increase the amount that people have to pay in to release the burden, you know, up taxes essentially. And you can also reduce the amount that you pay. Now, you don't need to actually drop the amount that you pay in order to reduce it. You can just leave it as it is and let inflation whittle it away. Currently in the UK, we have something called the triple lock. Now, this is a promise to up the state pension by one of three things, whichever is the biggest that year.
1, the growth in average wages. 2, the rate of inflation. Or 3, 2.5%.
Recently, they honoured this triple lock and upped state pension by inflation. This is expensive, and at some point, I imagine this triple lock promise will be broken. Okay, so state pension, will it, won't it exist? I don't know. That point alone really highlights the fact that we need to be on top of our own schemes. But my gut would be that no political party would want to be the ones to pull it. So instead, they're likely just to raise the amount at a rate less than inflation in order to reduce the burden. Let's say they completely screw us and only raise it by 0.5% a year on average. That would be about 12k by the time I retire. It's not ideal, but it's still a chunk towards your goal, isn't it? The thing about state pension is, you really can't rely on it because we don't know if it'll even exist by the time we get to retirement age. And simply, it isn't enough to keep the lights on. But 12k is still 12k, and that's a big chunk towards whatever income goal you've set for yourself. And if you're a couple, you get double the amount. So right, actionable steps with this. I said that for many, state pension is linked to your NI contributions. You can check your contributions here, and I'll link this below. It's worth logging on and just checking where you're up to, especially if you're self-employed. Okay, next up, let's look at work-based schemes. The first one is the defined benefit pension. They're called this because the benefit you get is predefined. What that means is these pensions will pay you out a set income based on how long you've worked at the company and how much you've earned. A lot of people in the public sector have these, so doctors, soldiers, but they're pretty rare in the private sector as they're just so damn expensive to maintain. If you have one of these, they are gold dust because they will pay you a fixed income guaranteed for life from retirement, similar in a way to the state pension. The key thing is, just don't mess these up. In terms of actionable steps, it's worth understanding with these what the defined benefit is. How many years do you need to work for the business in order to get the defined benefit, like the full allowance? And how much of your salary in retirement are you going to get? So as an example, they might say, Each year you get 1/40th of your salary. So if you work there for 10 years, you'll get a quarter of your salary at retirement. Your HR department can provide you with this info. Okay, next I want to look at defined contribution or DC pensions. This is the type of pension that most people watching this video will have. They're called defined contribution because the amount you get in retirement is defined by how much you contribute into them, by how much you pay into the pension. The most common one of these is a work-based pension. This is the auto-enrollment scheme you will have with your full-time job. This is where you pay some of your income into the scheme and then your employer matches it and you get tax relief on top of that as well. So where I used to work, as an example, I would pay in 4% of my total salary. My employer would then match that with another 3% and I get 1% tax relief. So with just 4% contribution from my perspective, I was getting a total contribution of 8%, which is halfway to the 15% goal that we needed. Now, 10% of people in the UK opt out of this auto-enrollment scheme. In my opinion, that is crazy because your money's doubling at source for free. It's literally free cash. Now, when it comes to actionable steps, the first thing that I'd want you to do here is contact everyone you've ever worked for and ask them, who is the pension provider? Then just go onto the website and go through the process to log into your pension. It's your standard, I forgot my details kind of thing. Log into your pension and just look at what's in it. How many people sat here right now have actually logged into their account ever? I myself had a load of pensions with a load of previous employers, and I've only recently looked at them because I've gone self-employed, so I'm just as bad as everyone else. Now, the first thing that I noticed was that I was invested in the wrong thing. So the default setting for a DC work-based scheme is what they call balanced. Mine was invested in something called cautious. This is like the lemon and herb variety at Nando's. That essentially meant my money was split between stocks and bonds around 50-50 with a long-term growth projection of only 3% on those funds. At 30-ish years old, in my opinion, it's crazy to have that sort of bond allocation. I want my money exposed to the stock market so it has the best chance of growing. Let's say that I was paying a total of £500 a month into a pension for 30 years, and one scenario I got 3% growth, the other I got 6%. That's a difference in £200,000 in the end result. So yeah, log in and check what is going on. And while you're at it, take a look at how much they're charging you also. So the thing about a work-based pension is you really have limited flexibility in who you use. Your company kind of decides this. And what that means is you have limited choice on kind of what funds are available and the fees that you pay in. But I'll take that for the benefit of the fact that my company's going to basically double the money that's going into it. But pension pots with previous employers, now you'd certainly have a choice on if you stay there. My previous pension pot was invested in a global index fund getting charges at 1% fees. The cheeky gits, 1%. I moved that into a SIPP, more on those in a second, and got those fees down to 0.25%. Same example as before, that's around 80k in fees that I saved. So you could say in 10 minutes, I saved myself hundreds of thousands of pounds and you wouldn't be lying. Now, a massive disclaimer here. Don't go moving around your pensions unless you're certain it's the correct thing to do. If you're unsure, I think that pensions specifically are one area of personal finance where it's really worth sitting down with a financial advisor to get them to say if they think you're making the right decision. At the end of the day, they're regulated to make sure that they can only give you good advice here. And, you know, a couple of £100 for a meeting with a financial advisor on something that's potentially going to be worth hundreds of thousands, if not millions of pounds, is well worth it to make sure that you don't do something wrong. But at the same time, hold up a financial advisor to the same scrutiny that you are previous pension providers. A lot of them want to take your funds and invest it in their products, but there's no point of jumping from a 1% fee to a 5% fee. Again, just make sure you have an honest and direct conversation with any financial advisor that you sit down with about their fees. Okay, now let's talk about SIPPs, or self-invested personal pensions. You can also group stakeholder pensions in this category as well, which is similar, but we're going to focus on the SIPPs, which is a defined contribution pension that you have full control over. I took all my previous employer-based pensions and consolidated them down into my own SIPP. It's a private pension, essentially. You control it. It has loads of benefits. You can stick commercial property in them as an example. But in its simplest form, it's just a tax wrapper like the other pensions. And I treat it in the exact same way that I treat my ISA. I actually have one with Vanguard, and I just literally have a global index in it. Nothing groundbreaking. It's the same logic. I just want to compound my wealth over the long run. You can also get a junior SIPP. It's arguably one of the greatest gifts you can give your child this. You can throw even a tiny amount of money in there every month and it will compound for decades. They can't touch it. If governments were serious about solving the pension crisis in this country, I would say that following this junior SIPP model would be a really good idea. instead of paying out an ever-increasing amount for state pension, instead say, right, any child born from today doesn't get state pension. Instead, we will put £5,000 into a SIPP for them at birth, and that will be invested in a global index. They can't touch it until they're 60. And based on the average return of the market pre-inflation, that'd be worth about £1 million by the time they hit 60. As well as that, when they hit 18, you auto-enroll them into it as well. So then they contribute on top of that. So there'd be millions in there by the time they hit 60. But that would take a government that was a little bit more forward-thinking and wasn't just based around a system of how do we get power in the next 4 years. But anyway, enough of that. This video is already 30 minutes long anyway. The video is actually so long that my hair has grown whilst filming it. Don't believe me? Just scroll back to the start and have a look compared to now. You see the fade has faded. I mean, that's partly my fault for spending 4 minutes on the Tom Jones intro, but also it's just a reflection of how massive this topic is. I feel really bad that I can't do it justice in one video and cover everything, but really, I just wanted to inspire you in 2023 to face this head on and stop treating your pension like it's the ugly stepsister of your financial assets. It's the goddamn main event. Promise me tomorrow that you'll march into your email inbox and ask any HR department that's had the privilege, nay, the pleasure, of calling you a member of staff at some point and ask them, who is the pension provider? Then just log into them all and just look at what's going on. Does it suit your risk profile? Are you being charged too much? If you're unsure what fund you're invested in, just Google it and see what it does. Or drop it below in the comments and I'll do my best to reply to as many of you as I can. I can almost bet it'll just be a global index fund. Next, are you maxing out your employer's contribution at work, at the very least? This can get you 8% of the way with just 4% of your income, and a lot of companies are even more generous than this. If you've opted out of that work-based scheme, I would seriously consider getting back into it. It's free money. I'm sorry this was just the basics today, and I hope it was useful for someone. This is just the beginning of the longest financial journey you will ever make, and it all starts with just taking ownership over your retirement. If you want more information on this topic and to expand from here, first of all, here's a video by Pete Matthews over at Meaningful Money, absolute legend, genius when it comes to pension content. He covers it well better than I ever could. Here's a video from me where I talk about investing for children, including the junior SIPP stuff if you want more info on that. And here's 3 channels from other finance creators here in the UK that I think do a much better job of pensions than I ever could. Thank you for your time, guys.